There are few sensations as profound as the moment you find yourself at your family's dinner table, only to confront the stark truth that you no longer belong in that space. Neither in matters of the heart, nor in the realm of work, nor within the circles of companionship. Claire Bennett is my name. I am 3 decades old. Last weekend, after a 7-year absence, I found myself driving back to my father's home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to witness my younger stepbrother's wedding. It is often said that one cannot return to the place they once called home. It wasn't until I found myself standing in that damn entryway that I finally believed it. The carpet remained a weary shade of faded beige. The aroma of pine sol intertwined with the sweetness of vanilla candles enveloped me, reminiscent of a memory I never sought to recall. There sat Victoria, my father's second wife, poised at the kitchen island, a glass of rosé in hand, and that ever-present tight-lipped smile etched on her face since I turned 16. "Claire," she said, remaining seated, "you actually came." I wished for a bus that wasn't overly packed. After a long 6-hour journey behind the wheel of my own vehicle, Evan, her golden boy, was set to marry the following day, and the house buzzed with anticipation. Blooms, event planning lists, attire carriers. I found myself on the outside, untouched by any of it. No drink was even offered to me. Victoria persistently labeled me as the mechanic while introducing me to her friends. That was my path a decade ago, following my time in trade school. I once toiled in maintenance for the Boston subway system, all the while attending night classes. Yet she never seemed to refresh that file in her mind. I am currently employed by the SEC. I oversee significant internal audits associated with mergers and acquisitions. Yet, I have kept that to myself, not out of shame, but rather because they have never once inquired. The dinner that evening unfolded just as one might anticipate. Sophie, Evan's fiancée, radiated warmth beneath the shimmering glow of the dining room chandelier. My dad leaned in, brimming with pride, inquiring about the merger that Evan's company was spearheading, a staggering $900 million acquisition. "He overseeing the operational integration," Victoria remarked, her face alight with pride. "At the age of 28? Isn't that hard to fathom?" I murmured softly. No one listened to my voice. My father offered a subtle nod. "Evan has always possessed an unwavering determination. That is a remarkable something." Not everyone possesses the qualities needed for business leadership, Claire. Yet, that is perfectly acceptable. Each of us carries a unique role in the tapestry of existence. I remained silent. This script had become familiar to me. Though I had experienced it for years, what followed still had the power to hurt. Sophie regarded me with a courteous glance. "What is it that you do once more, Claire?" Just as I was about to respond, Victoria interjected. "Claire engages with electrical systems, or something along those lines. She is deeply involved in every aspect. Similar to a field technician?" A question was posed. "She's quite skilled with tools," Victoria remarked, a smile gracing her lips as if it were a compliment. "Indeed, should any mishaps occur at the venue tomorrow, we will certainly know whom to reach out to, won't we?" All were filled with laughter. I gazed at my father. He chuckled softly into his wine. Evan remained utterly absorbed in his phone, not sparing a single glance upwards. A knot formed in my stomach, not with shame, but with a chill that cuts deeper, sharper, more intense. Later that night, I found myself in the guest room, my childhood sanctuary, now transformed into a haphazard storage space, gazing at the floral bedspread that had once adorned my middle school days. I flipped open my laptop, intent on checking my email, primarily as a means to divert my thoughts. There it stood, a presence unmistakable. "An urgent new assignment awaits your attention." I opened it and almost burst into laughter. "Tomorrow morning, I am scheduled to report in person to commence a pre-merger audit of Norwind Systems, the very company that Evan was in the process of integrating. I will take the helm of the SEC's internal investigation. I would be the one to either finalize or put a stop to the entire agreement." I reclined in the old creaky desk chair, going over the assignment once more. Unbeknownst to them, years ago I made attempts to have them recognize me, to honor my decisions, to grasp that I was crafting something according to my own vision. At that moment, they were about to witness something entirely different, not out of a desire for vengeance, but because I had earned the right to emerge from the shadows, and because at 9 a.m. tomorrow, I would no longer be Claire the repair girl. I would assume the role of Claire Bennett, senior investigator, as Evan's entire career teetered on the precipice of my scrutiny. Sleep eluded me that night. It was not a matter of nerves. It was truly extraordinary. A blend of adrenaline and the resurfacing of old wounds, splitting apart like ice under pressure. I found myself wide awake, gazing up at the familiar ceiling of my childhood room. The glow-in-the-dark stars remained affixed above, as if time itself had chosen to stand still in this place. From down the hall, their voices reached my ears. The sound of Victoria's voice drifted softly through the delicate walls. The soft, low chuckle of my father, Evan boasting about the honeymoon. No one came to bid goodnight. No one ever did. At the break of dawn, precisely at 6:30 a.m., I found myself awake. I meticulously pressed my navy suit, secured my hair in a neat style, and fastened the badge to my briefcase with care. United States Senior Investigator at the Securities and Exchange Commission. The journey to Norwin Systems was serene. Overcast heavens, chill illumination. I eased into the visitor lot and paused in my car, taking a moment to breathe deeply. The company logo was engraved in steel upon the glass facade of the building, as if it were a fixture in a Bond villain's lair. Within the confines of the room, the receptionist glanced up, taken aback. "How may I assist you?" "Indeed." "Claire Bennett, Securities and Exchange Commission. I have arrived to engage with Jason Whitmore and the finance team concerning the pre-merger audit." Her eyes grew a fraction wider. "Indeed, certainly. Kindly hold on for a moment." 15 minutes later, I found myself navigating a labyrinth of glass-walled corridors, glancing at the cubicles where hushed conversations fluttered like moths in the dim light as I moved by. It was as if they had never encountered a Fed in their lives. And then, there, he stood. Evan stood outside the conference room, sharing a laugh with a group of men in blazers, likely all seasoned golfers and alumni of the same prestigious business school. He turned, and the smile vanished entirely from his face. "Is that you, Claire?" "Morning," I said, my voice steady and unyielding like stone. "Are we set for 9 a.m. then?" He blinked slowly, as if awakening from a dream. "Are you the auditor?" "I am indeed the lead on the Federal Review." I moved past him and entered the room as if it belonged to me, for the simple reason that it was. I sensed his presence lingering behind me, his demeanor rigid. The other executives entered gradually, their gazes shifting between him and me, attempting to grasp the unfolding situation. As Victoria entered the room, a chuckle nearly escaped my lips. Clad in a deep green suit, she gripped a leather-bound portfolio, her heels echoing sharply against the tile floor. She stood still, her eyes wide as they locked onto mine. "Oh," she remarked, "that was the moment." "Oh, indeed." "Good morning, Victoria," I uttered, my expression remaining neutral. She gave a slight nod before taking a seat opposite me. A brief hush fell over the room as everyone found their places. With a flick of the lid, I unleashed my laptop and set to work. This gathering serves to commence the CC's compliance examination concerning Norwin's acquisition of Axiontech. As you are all aware, a merger of this magnitude necessitates a meticulous examination of financial records, liabilities, and executive disclosures. I observed the gradual transformation of Evan's expression as it became increasingly resolute. He despised finding himself in a space where he didn't effortlessly assume the role of the brightest mind. I proceeded to delineate the boundaries of the audit. The tension intensified with each word spoken. I then requested to review the Q2 discretionary spending reports. A moment of silence lingered in the air. All eyes turned toward Victoria. "I oversee access to those files," she stated with caution. I inclined my head in agreement. "I require complete access today." She paused, a mere moment of uncertainty, yet it lingered in the air. "Certainly." We navigated through line items, contracts, and vendor payments. I flagged 3 accounts that raised some concerns. Every single one bore Evan's name hidden deep within the approval chain. Nothing unlawful, at least for now. However, it lacks precision. Quite careless. After 2 hours, I decided it was time for a brief respite. The room emptied. Evan remained. He shut the door and faced me. Is this meant to bring me shame? I raised my gaze gradually. I'm fulfilling my responsibilities. Your feelings on the matter are your own concern. You ought to have informed me. I found myself laughing. What did I say? That I have dedicated the past 10 years to constructing a career that many of you doubted I had the intellect to achieve. I achieved all of this entirely on my own without any assistance from this family. He appeared utterly bewildered, as if it had never crossed his mind that the narrative they had woven about me could be flawed. I had no intention of doing that. You needn't have meant it. You experienced it firsthand. You remained seated as Victoria referred to me as the handyman during your own rehearsal dinner. He rubbed his jaw, a clear sign of his discomfort. At last he spoke her name, Claire. If this merger fails to materialize, it will jeopardize my career. My gaze was fixed upon him. It would be wise to ensure that your figures are accurate. I'm not here in the capacity of your sister, Evan. I stand before you as the authority who determines the fate of your deal in the eyes of federal scrutiny. I exited the room before he had the chance to respond. As I strolled down the corridor, an unfamiliar figure, perhaps one of the finance team, approached me with purpose. So, you're his sister, he inquired, a half-smile playing on his lips. I inclined my head in agreement. He let out a soft whistle. Alas. He's been behaving as if he orchestrates the entire performance. It seems we all received a stark reminder of reality today. I offered him a brief, tight smile before continuing on my way. In that instant, I experienced neither fury nor a desire for retribution, merely a step above, a touch more pristine, lucidity. The kind I had been crafting silently over the years. One might imagine that witnessing Evan writhe in discomfort within that conference room would evoke a sense of poetic justice. It did not. It was akin to traversing a path of shattered glass, yet somehow, I remained unscathed. Each question I posed was incisive, for it needed to be. Not out of a desire to draw blood. Yet the bleeding persisted unabated. The audit was resumed following the intermission. Victoria returned, her jaw clenched and her eyes narrowed, as if preparing for a legal battle. For a person who neglected to remember my birthday for 4 consecutive years, she certainly appeared affronted that I had the audacity to enter her realm. She handed me a folder and remarked, "Here's everything you requested, Claire." Not darling, not a child, not even a hint of sarcasm from Ms. SEC. Just Claire. I felt as though I were an outsider at her table. Silence enveloped the room. Onlookers ceased their furtive glances between us, as if anticipating a familial explosion to unfold upon the boardroom carpet. As I sifted through the files, a hush enveloped the room. The figures conveyed their own story. Redundant vendors, unexpected charges for consulting services, an offshore account designated as miscellaneous international services. I raised my gaze. This information was not revealed in your initial submissions. Victoria remained unperturbed. It adheres to the established standards. Feel free to confirm. I shall, I declared, turning the page with a deliberate motion. The remainder of the meeting unfolded in a languid, almost surreal manner, as if time itself had decided to stretch and bend. Evan, who had entered the building with the confidence of a royal heir, had fallen silent. His concepts failed to resonate. His figures failed to stand firm. At one juncture, when I inquired about a security contract that had exceeded its budget considerably, Evan attempted to shift the responsibility to the CFO. I brought him to a halt. "Evan, you gave your direct approval for this. Could you elucidate the concept of variance?" He blinked slowly, as if awakening from a deep reverie. "I will need to revisit the documentation once more." "You signed it 2 weeks ago," I remarked, sliding the copy across the table. He cast his gaze downward, his signature gazed back at him. That was the defining moment. The transition. The unseen crown split perfectly in two. Once the session concluded, Shannon, a senior executive from Axion Tech, requested a private conversation with me. We entered a small, secluded office. She closed the door quietly behind her. "I had no idea you were related to Jason Whitmore." I cast her a scrutinizing glance. Step-siling. And complete auditor. Her lips curled into a smile. "I find that appealing. Listen, I'm not here to delve into family affairs. but I must speak my truth. Your management of this review has been remarkable, Director. Impartial, comprehensive. Thank you, I expressed, with genuine sincerity. I have experienced 3 mergers. Many auditors either succumb to the weight of pressure or attempt to don the mantle of a hero. It appears that neither option has captured your interest. I incline my head in agreement. My purpose here is to ensure that no hidden dangers lurk within the data. That is all. She hesitated. The account located beyond our shores. Should we choose to proceed, what would you suggest as the best course of action? I acted without a moment's pause. Please provide the complete documentation within 5 business days. Should that not succeed, bring it to the attention of the DOJ and postpone the merger until further clarification is obtained. She inclined her head in agreement. Excellent. I conveyed that expectation to my board. As I stepped out of that room, a profound shift occurred within me. I no longer felt like the little sister to anyone. I experienced the sensation of being an individual whose name carried significance, not due to my words but rather because of the principles I embodied. As I stepped back into that familiar guest bedroom that night, with its dusty bookshelf and floral wallpaper, a wave of nostalgia washed over me, transporting me to the age of 13 once more. I found myself sitting cross-legged on the carpet, compelled to reach out to my mom. Yet she had vanished into the ether of time, years slipping by like grains of sand. Grief is an enigmatic force. It fails to appear at the moment you anticipate. It lingers until you've accomplished something noteworthy, then gently nudges you and murmurs, "Wish she noticed that." She would have felt a swell of pride. At the age of 14, she became my guide, illuminating the intricacies of balance sheets for me. The person who preserved every certificate I ever received, regardless of its size, on the fridge until the magnets lost their grip. I perched on the edge of the bed, retrieved my phone, and revisited an old email from her that I had never brought myself to delete. It was brief, merely 3 words: "Persevere, Claire." Thus, I proceeded. The following morning, just prior to the final review, Evan rapped gently on my door. I parted it just enough to catch a glimpse inside. He appeared as though he had not rested at all. "May we engage in conversation?" he inquired. I remained still. Our meeting is set for the boardroom at 10 o'clock, not in the capacity of the auditor, like my sister. The significance of that word was far diminished from his perception. Nevertheless, I ventured outside. Not for his sake, but because I needed to meet his gaze as I posed this next question. "Do you recall that summer when Dad whisked you away to the Cape, leaving me to concentrate on my studies?" I inquired. His brow furrowed in displeasure. "Claire, that was ages past." "Precisely," I remarked. "It remains the most lucid way I can convey the dynamics of this family throughout the years. There exists the segment that captures the limelight, and the aspect that often slips through the cracks. I never intended to find myself entangled in that." I repeated. "You didn't have to mean it. One simply had to experience it. And you did." He nodded, remorse carved deeply into his expression. "What unfolds next?" I regarded him with a serene composure. "At this moment, I have completed my review. Should it receive approval, the merger will proceed. If it fails to do so, then so be it." "What about you?" he inquired. "Will you return after this? Festivities? Matters of the family?" I allowed the silence to linger. "We shall see," I remarked. Forgiveness is not a gift I distribute casually, as if it were mere party favors. Particularly not when those requesting it began to perceive me with clarity only at the moment I wielded a red pen against their reputation. The boardroom appeared transformed the following morning, not due to any alterations in the furniture. The same gleaming wood, the same overpriced coffee machine continues to hum in the corner. Yet, it was the way they gazed upon me that made all the difference. Evan's half-sister was no longer in their sight, or the stepdaughter of Victoria. They beheld power, and not the fleeting sort that arose from a borrowed title. Yet, it is the kind forged through years of unwavering presence, engaging in rigorous study, experiencing defeat in silence, and returning with renewed clarity. As the clock struck 2 minutes to 10, I entered the room, claimed my place at the head of the table, and unfurled my file with purpose. The Axion Tech team had already arrived. Gaze unwavering, laptops are open. Evan trailed behind, a moment's pause marking his arrival. Victoria found herself in the final position. Today, she donned a blouse of a gentler fabric, reduced armor. Further discussions are needed. Yet her gaze remained unyielding. I made the most of my time. We shall commence with the final itemization, I declared, bringing the presentation to life with a click. Oxyantech has presented updated projections for earnings following our discoveries from yesterday. Thank you, Shannon. Shannon inclined her head in agreement. Nonetheless, the disclosures from Norwin in Q2 continue to exhibit a lack of consistency, particularly concerning the payments to consultants. Victoria folded her arms across her chest. The vendors have established enduring relationships with the company. Conventional contracting process. I'm confident that you will have no trouble providing the complete documentation to the audit team. I responded with composure. Victoria parted her lips, sealed it shut. I glanced over at Evan. Is there anything you would like to contribute concerning the offshore account that was noted in last year's operating expenses? His complexion was notably pallid. That was beyond my scope. I raised the approval form, adorned with his signature. This was indeed you. This time, he did not refute it. I refrained from asking questions. Victoria asserted that it was cleared, her gaze piercing as she directed a sharp look at him. Take responsibility, Evan. You hold the esteemed position of an executive. Your approvals are yours to command. That moment was steeped in irony, and it nearly brought a laugh to my lips. Throughout my existence, they had functioned as if in a duet, a seamless two-person performance. Victoria murmured softly. Evan echoed the words once more. What about my father? He nodded from the wings as if following a meticulously crafted script. Yet the focus had shifted elsewhere. It was indifferent to who had once orchestrated the performance. With a swift motion, I turned to the following slide. This transaction requires our attention for a compliance review. Should it be validated, it may result in a postponement of the merger's approval. A silence enveloped the scene. I observed Shannon recline in her chair, her arms crossed with a certain poise. Her gaze was fixed upon me, not those individuals, assessing, with utmost respect. Victoria's voice shattered the stillness. Is that all there is? Have you truly thrown everything we've built into disarray? No, I insisted, locking my gaze with hers. You accomplished that. I am merely the observer who has taken note. Evan rubbed his face, a blend of frustration and fatigue washing over him. You're missing the point, Claire. Should this merger fail, we stand to lose far more than mere business. I forfeit my chance to escape the confines of Dad's shadow. I find myself stripped of the one talent I believed I could master. I experienced that sensation. I certainly did. Yet, the reality was that he remained oblivious to the fact that I had been constructing something of my own as well. Silently, beyond the glow of their attention, a force more potent, something genuine. Do you desire recognition for your true worth? I declared. I did as well. Yet I was not afforded the luxury of failing upward while others shielded my pride. Establishing my credibility required a considerable investment of time and effort. Victoria rose suddenly. It might be time for us to pause for a moment. I rose as well. We are nearing completion. I shut the laptop, allowing the heaviness of the room to linger for a moment, stretching into silence. I will have my complete report submitted by the end of the day. Once the inconsistencies are resolved, the merger will move forward. Should that not be the case, it will remain in a state of suspension while an investigation is underway. There was no dissenting voice. Not a single person even flinched. They grasped the truth at last. I did not seek out respect. I had asserted it. The meeting concluded, leaving behind an absence of the customary handshake. I had no requirement for one. Outside the building, I paused for a moment, contemplating before I unlocked my rental. The wind had begun to stir. The early whispers of autumn gently caressed the fading warmth of late summer. Evan approached me in the parking lot. I suppose this is the moment when you gallop away into the golden horizon, isn't it? He spoke with a strained smile. My gaze fell upon him, truly observed. No, I replied. This is the moment when I fulfill my responsibilities. Then return to your abode, Claire. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Has it always been this dire? Did we truly regard you as fewer? I hesitated before responding. You failed to regard me in any meaningful way. I spoke in a gentle whisper. That was the issue at hand. He nodded, a weight of guilt pressing down upon his shoulders. "I truly meant it, just so you know," he remarked. "Your performance was commendable, surpassing my previous performance in any meeting." I was taken by surprise. "Thank you," I replied. He inhaled deeply. "It's intriguing to ponder how the course of events might have shifted. However, they did not," I interjected. "And that is precisely the crux of the matter." He gave another nod. "I shall mend what is within my power to mend." "You ought to," I insisted. "This isn't suited for my tastes. For you." As I settled into the car and turned the key in the ignition, a sense of triumph eluded me. A sense of clarity enveloped me. For the first time in ages, I found myself no longer striving to secure a place at anyone's table. I had brought my own. 2 weeks following the submission of my report, the Department of Justice identified the consultant payments and the offshore account for additional scrutiny. The merger has been officially put on hold. It hardly garnered any national attention. Such occurrences are seldom witnessed, yet within the realm that Evan inhabited, it detonated with the force of an explosion. He was discreetly taken off the project. His promotion has been put on hold. The consulting agreement between Victoria and Norwin underwent a thorough reevaluation, which, in the language of the corporate world, signified that she was released to prevent any repercussions. I did not find joy in that move. However, I shall not deceive. Observing a system that once supported them now demand their accountability. That resonated in a unique way. A few days later, I returned to DC by flight. The apartment remained just as I had left it. Pristine, understated, serene. I placed my keys on the counter and breathed out, allowing the silence to envelop me as if it were a hard-won reward. A manila envelope awaited me in my mailbox, dispatched from Norwin's legal team. Within the document lies a formal recognition of the audit's conclusions, complete with a footnote that directly cites my pivotal contribution to upholding transparency and adherence to regulatory standards. Humorous. 10 years back, I struggled to persuade my family to glance at a college paper that filled me with pride. My name now appeared in legal documents linked to a nearly $1 billion freeze. On a certain evening, roughly a month later, I received a call. It was Father. I nearly allowed it to slip into voicemail. Yet, a fragment of my being, perhaps the very essence that recalled the moment he guided me through the intricacies of parallel parking, stirred within me. "Claire," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I've come to learn of the audit. I must express my surprise. I had no idea you had transformed into someone capable of cutting him off. Not with fury, only with clarity. I've always been this person, Dad. You simply failed to observe with the necessary attention. You simply failed to observe with the necessary..." A moment of silence lingered in the air. An authentic one. "Indeed, you are correct," he uttered. "We have let you down. I have let you down." I remained silent. All that remained was the acceptance of what could not be mended. He continued onward. "If there comes a moment when you might allow me a glimpse into your world or invite me back into your life, I would welcome the opportunity to try once more." It marked the first occasion in my entire adult existence that he had requested me to take the reins of the conversation. I informed him that I would ponder over it. I truly meant it. Yet, I was aware that I would be fine even if our paths never crossed again in conversation. For I had shed the burden of feeling unchosen. A few weeks later, I shared a dinner with Shannon, the executive from Axiontech. She extended an invitation for me to take on a role. Director of Ethical Considerations and Risk Management Strategy, conducting audits such as the one I recently wrapped up with my own team. I agreed, not out of a desire for power. Yet, I yearned for an environment where I could create something without the need to fade into the background to prove my worth. And now, we arrive at the aspect of closure that often remains unspoken. It doesn't come in with the force of a door slamming shut. The silence envelops the surroundings. The instant dawns when you understand that an apology is not a prerequisite for your progress. Yet, when the apology arrives unbidden, it feels akin to emerging from the tempest, only to discover that the rain never drenched you as it did them. Not long after, Evan sent me an email. It lacked any sense of drama. "We sincerely apologize for the feelings we may have caused you. You were never diminished. I simply found it difficult to acknowledge that you were something greater." That was the nearest semblance of justice I would ever receive from him. In some inexplicable way, it sufficed. To be underestimated may sting, yet it pales in comparison to the pain of contorting oneself into a reflection of another's expectations. At times, the most effective form of retribution is subtle. It is simply irrefutable. I appreciate your unwavering support as we journeyed through this narrative together. If you've ever had to fight for your respect, particularly from those who should have offered it without hesitation, share your experience in the comments. I would be delighted to listen. If you're interested in more tales of insight, resilience, and understated strength, feel free to subscribe. We are not solitary beings, even in those moments when it seems that way.